Why people think you're too dark, but demons know you're not one of them. Have you ever walked into a room and felt the energy shift? Not because you're loud, not because you're causing a scene, but simply because your presence carries something other people don't understand. There's a certain type of person who walks through life with a silent intensity. You don't need to say much. Your eyes speak stories of galaxies. Your silence echoes louder than noise. And yet, people misread you. They look at your stillness and think it's coldness. They feel your depth and call it darkness. They sense the weight of your soul and label it dangerous. But what they don't realize is that the very essence they fear is exactly what keeps you grounded, peaceful, and deeply connected to something ancient and sacred. You see, we live in a world obsessed with appearances. Light in the modern context has become synonymous with smiles, sunshine, and surface-level positivity. We're told to be high vibe, to always look cheerful, to radiate happiness like a filtered Instagram post. But real light isn't always bright. It's not always soft or sweet. Sometimes light is heavy. Sometimes light is fierce. Sometimes the brightest light wears a cloak of night so it can walk in places others are too afraid to enter. And that's where you live. That's what you are. You're not dark in the way they think. You're just carrying a different kind of flame.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
People say you're too much, too intense, too emotional, too quiet, too strange. But the truth is, you're just too real, and realness is rare. So when others look at you and flinch, they're not seeing darkness, they're seeing their own unprocessed shadows reflected back. You remind them of the parts they've buried. You mirror the truths they're not ready to face. And so, instead of questioning themselves, they project onto you. They say you're dark because they don't understand what kind of light you carry. But the spirits do. The demons do. The unseen world knows. And that's why, while people may fear you, the darkness respects you. Here's the paradox. Those who walk with the most light often attract the most misunderstanding. You've probably noticed it. You try to help and they say you're manipulating. You stay silent and they accuse you of hiding something. You speak truth and they call it judgment. You show strength and they call it arrogance. But you're not here to be understood by everyone. You're not here to fit into the mold of safe or normal. You're here to disrupt illusions, to break cycles, to hold the line between the seen and unseen. And of course, that's going to rattle people. But let's go deeper. Have you ever wondered why demons, real or symbolic, don't fear you? Why they don't attack you the way they attack others? Why they sometimes even leave when you enter a space? It's because they recognize something in you, not kinship, not similarity, but power, reverence. You're not one of them, but you can walk among them. You're not possessed, but you can touch the places where possession lives and not be consumed. You can sit in someone's pain without flinching. You can hold space for suffering without needing to fix it with fake positivity. That's spiritual maturity. That's soul authority. And that's what they fear. Demons, whether they're actual entities or just the energetic residue of trauma, fear, and hatred, feed off weakness, denial, and illusion. But when you show up with your eyes wide open, your heart cracked but not closed, and your energy grounded like an ancient oak tree, they have nothing to feed on. They can't play their games with you. You don't run, you don't tremble, you don't pretend. You just are, and that terrifies them, because truth is their enemy. And you, my friend, are truth wrapped in skin. Now, here's where it gets interesting. You probably didn't ask for this role. You didn't wake up one day saying, "Let me be the one who sees what others can't." This path likely chose you. Maybe you were born with it. Maybe you earned it through lifetimes of spiritual warfare. Or maybe it came through suffering. Deep, soul-breaking suffering that shattered your illusions and rebuilt you from the inside out. Pain has a way of initiating us into spiritual authority, and you've probably had more than your share. But look at you, still here, still standing, still loving. That's not darkness, that's divinity. Let me ask you something. When was the last time someone truly saw you? Not just the mask you wear to survive, but the core of your being. When was the last time someone looked into your eyes and didn't look away? Most people can't, because to see you is to see reality, unfiltered, raw, and holy, and most people aren't ready for that. But the ones who are, they'll feel it instantly. They won't call you dark, they'll call you home. In this world, light workers aren't always radiant angels with soft voices and white robes. Sometimes they're warriors cloaked in shadow. They speak with thunder. They walk through fire. They don't glow, they burn. And you one of them. You've been through hell, not to stay there, but to come back with maps. You've touched the abyss, not to drown, but to retrieve the lost pieces of yourself and others. That's not darkness, that's resurrection. And so, if you've been told you're too dark, I want you to remember this. The moon doesn't apologize for shining in the night. The stars don't dim themselves because the sky is black. And you, yes you, don't need to shrink your frequency for those still living in fear. You don't need to explain your depth to those who fear drowning. You don't owe anyone an apology for being the one who can walk in shadow and still carry light, because that's exactly what you were born to do. So let them talk. Let them misunderstand. Let them call you names. You weren't made for their approval. You were made for the sacred. You were made to stare into the void without flinching. You were made to hold the vibration of truth in a world addicted to lies. And if that makes you too dark in their eyes, then so be it. Because the ones who know, really know, they see your light. And the darkness, it knows it too. It bows in respect. Because even the darkest energies recognize a soul that cannot be bought, broken, or bent. And now I'll leave you with this. What if the parts of you you've tried to hide, the intensity, the quiet knowing, the unnameable power, aren't flaws, but sacred signatures? What if everything you've been told to tone down is actually the very thing this world desperately needs more of? The sacred misfit. Why you were designed to be misunderstood. You were never meant to fit in. That's the truth no one tells you when you're growing up, constantly trying to adjust your volume, your energy, your strange insights that seem to land like meteors in conversations that were never meant to go that deep. You learned early on that your presence made people uncomfortable, not because you were doing anything wrong, but simply because you were different, and that difference, it wasn't a defect, it was a divine signature. A cosmic fingerprint placed on your soul to ensure that you would never blend in so perfectly that you'd forget who you really are. We live in a world that rewards conformity, the smooth edges, the well-rehearsed smiles, the agreeable voices. But you Your edges were sharp, your presence disrupted. You asked the questions no one wanted to answer. You brought a silence into the room that made noise feel exposed. And so, people couldn't place you. They couldn't categorize you. And when people can't categorize something, they fear it. That's what misunderstanding really is, fear dressed up as judgment. They didn't understand why your energy felt ancient. They didn't know how to explain why your presence made them feel seen in ways they weren't ready for. So they labeled you intense, weird, too deep, too dark. But what if misunderstanding is your spiritual camouflage? What if you were meant to walk alone for a season, not because you're broken, but because you're being refined? Think about it. If everyone understood you, if everyone embraced you, you might have gotten too comfortable in the illusion. You might have lost your edge, softened your truth, diluted your essence. But isolation, misunderstanding, that pain carved you into something precise. It made you sharp. It made you awake. And that's what the world needs now more than ever. Awake souls who aren't afraid to be misunderstood because they know what they carry is too sacred to be diluted for comfort. There is a sacredness in being the misfit. You weren't made to follow the crowd. You were made to guide it, even if that means walking in the opposite direction first. Misfits are system disruptors. They are pattern breakers. They are the ones who challenge the stories we've been told about who we're allowed to be. And yes, it's lonely. Yes, it's painful. But it's also holy, because in that space of not belonging, you start to belong to something larger. You start to belong to truth. And the demons, the darkness, they know this. They know that someone who has survived misunderstanding without losing their essence is dangerous, not because they're evil, but because they can't be manipulated. You're not easily deceived anymore. You see through the surface. You sense energy. You feel what's not being said, and that makes you immune to the tactics of fear-based control that so many people unconsciously bow to every day. So if you've been walking through life wondering why you never quite fit, why your presence gets reactions you didn't intend, why the people who get you are so few and far between, know this: you were meant to be rare. You were meant to be unplaceable. Because your energy isn't from this age, it's from before. You are a remnant of something sacred, and remnants can't be mass-produced. They can only be revealed when the time is right. Now ask yourself, would you rather be universally accepted for a version of yourself that isn't true, or deeply known by a few who truly see your soul? That answer will tell you everything. You're not one of them. Why the darkness can't claim you. There's a reason the darkness can't hold you, even when it tries. It's not because you've never walked through it. On the contrary, you've been dragged through depths most people can't even imagine. You've tasted despair. You've sat with grief like it was your only companion. You've heard your own mind whisper lies in the middle of the night, trying to convince you that you were lost, broken, unworthy, but you didn't stay there. You didn't let it consume you. And that's what makes you different. That's what makes you untouchable. You see, the darkness only claims those who agree with it. It has no real power without your permission. It feeds on consent, on the moment when a soul gives up and says, "Yes, I am what you say I am worthless, I am doomed, I am evil." But you never said yes. Maybe you trembled, maybe you cried, maybe you screamed into pillows and cursed the sky. But something in you refused to surrender the truth of who you are. Something in you remembered. That's the difference. That's why the darkness couldn't own you. And here's what most people don't understand. Being surrounded by darkness doesn't make you dark. Being misunderstood doesn't make you wrong. Being hated doesn't make you evil. You've had to stand in places where the light didn't reach, and yet you still carried it. You've had to be the flame in other people's shadows. You've had to hold space for healing when you were still bleeding. That's not weakness, that's not darkness, that's divine resilience. That's spiritual authority. You're not one of them, not because you're better, but because you've chosen differently. In every moment when bitterness tried to take root, you chose love. When vengeance whispered your name, you chose peace. When hopelessness crept in like fog, you lit a candle and walked forward anyway. That's what the darkness hates. Not your strength, not your light, but your choice. Because choice is power, and you've learned to wield it like a sword. And the demons, the real ones, they recognize that. Not in fear, but in respect. They know who they can manipulate, and they know who they can't. They don't waste time on souls who can't be seduced by illusion. That's why you don't attract the same kind of spiritual warfare as others. It's not that you're immune, it's that your energy is fortified by truth. You've seen too much, felt too much, known too much. And that knowing creates a frequency they can't penetrate. But don't mistake this for perfection. You're not here to be flawless. You're not here to float above the world on a cloud of enlightenment. You're here to embody truth in a human life, to feel all the messiness, all the contradictions, all the aching beauty of existence, and still choose light. That's the real spiritual path. Not denial, but integration. Not escape, but presence. And you've been doing that, even on the days you thought you were failing. The fact that you still care, still feel, still show up, that's the proof you haven't been claimed. So the next time someone looks at you with suspicion, the next time they call you too dark, too intense, too different, remember this: they're seeing your scars, not your soul. They're seeing your fire, not your fall. They're seeing the armor you had to build to survive, not the heart that beats beneath it. But the darkness, it sees you clearly, and it knows. You're not one of them. You walk through it, but you do not belong to it. Ask yourself this: if the darkness couldn't claim you at your lowest, what could possibly stop you now that you've remembered who you are? Your presence is a portal. Why the world needs your shadow light. Your presence is not accidental. You didn't just happen to survive everything you've been through. You didn't stumble into this awareness by chance. You were forged, sculpted, initiated. And now, whether you realize it or not, you are a portal. A living, breathing access point between worlds, between what is seen and unseen, between the surface and the soul, between the light that comforts and the shadow that transforms. You carry both, and that's exactly why the world needs you now more than ever. Most people are afraid of the dark, not because of what's actually in it, but because of what it reflects back to them. They avoid it, deny it, suppress it. They live only in the shallow end of their own existence, terrified of what might rise if they go deeper. But you were never given that luxury. Life pushed you into the deep end early. You didn't get to avoid the shadow, you had to make peace with it. You had to sit with your monsters, give them names, understand their wounds, and in doing so you became something rare. Someone who can walk between worlds without losing themselves. That's why your energy feels different. That's why people are drawn to you even if they don't understand why. It's not just your wisdom, it's not just your calm, it's the fact that when they're around you, they feel safe to be real, not performative, not perfect, but raw, human. You don't require them to shine all the time. You don't expect them to be positive vibes only. You give them permission to be whole, to be messy, to be true. And that's healing, that's sacred, that's why you're here. You're not just here to bring light into the world, you're here to bring truth. And truth includes everything: the pain, the joy, the questions, the silence. You're here to remind people that they don't have to run from their shadows to be worthy of love. That their brokenness isn't a curse, it's a clue, a path, a portal. Just like you are a living invitation to come home to the self, to the soul, to the sacred space where light and darkness dance instead of fight. And yes, it's a heavy role to carry. Sometimes you'll wonder why it had to be you, why you had to walk through so much, why the weight of others seems to find its way to your shoulders. But the truth is, you're not carrying it for them, you're transmuting it with them. Your presence alone creates a shift. You don't have to speak, you don't have to fix, you just have to be. Because who you are, fully, unapologetically, unfiltered, is medicine. Super calm, medicine heal for the broken, for the lost, for the parts of the world that forgot how to feel. You might not wear a crown, you might not be recognized by the world, but the spirits know you, the earth knows you, the wind, the silence, the soul of the universe, they know you. You are written into the fabric of this moment in time for a reason. You're not a mistake, you're not too dark. You are one of the few who can hold the paradox and not be torn apart by it. You are the light in the shadow. You are the stillness in the storm. You are a portal, and when people walk through your energy, they remember parts of themselves they thought were lost. So don't dim, don't shrink, don't soften your edges to make others comfortable. The world doesn't need more people pretending to be light. It needs people like you who are the light, even when wrapped in darkness, who carry truth like a torch, who walk fearlessly through shadow and still choose love. And now I leave you with one final question. If you stopped fearing your depth, if you fully embraced your shadow light, what kind of healing could you unlock in this world?